Welcome back to our Florida podcast. This is part 2 of our Florida Black Bear episode. Hopefully you listened to this first episode on Monday where we focused on learning about black bears and then what it looks like for black bears in 2015. This episode will especially focus on the future of Florida black bears in 2025 and each year after. So my name is Mae. I'll be chatting about Part 2, Florida Black Bears, and then I have my sister here, Kaylee, with me as our listener.
Yep, I'll be listening in today. I'm the other host, but I usually bring stories about people, places, and history, not so much the animals, so I'm excited.
Let's do it. I want to start out by saying on FWC's website, and so I'm bringing this up just because there seems to be a correlation here with the problem, in my own opinion, and so this is what is on FWC's website right now. So, since the 1980s, the black bear population has been expanding along with our human population. Florida has grown from 5 million residents in 1960 to 20 million today, and is projected to reach almost 36 million by 2060. As a result, bears and people are encountering each other more often. So, just kind of keep that in mind. We'll probably discuss a little bit further. So, the future of the Florida black bear, what does it look like? In December of 2024, at the commissioner meeting, it was asked to start proposing ideas and hunting regulations to establish an annual bear hunt to control the expected rising population. On April 2nd, a series of public virtual meetings started for the general public to express concerns on the plans of the 2025 bear hunt, as well as hunting regulations and changes that would be made this year. These meetings are open for the public and were held at different times on April 2nd, April 3rd, and April 5th. I personally was not able to attend the meetings. However, all meetings were recorded, and I'll have them linked if you'd like to go ahead and listen to them. The comments that I have for today's meeting or for today's recording. This was from the recorded meeting on April 2nd. So, just for reference, if you go through and you listen to anyone else, I did not go through all the meetings. They're about 3.5 hours long. One of them was like 4 hours. So a lot of information. They do go over the same black bear overview information, but after that, it's all individual comments and concerns about the bear hunt versus the hunting regulations and things like that. So, like I said, we'll have all the recorded meetings linked in the caption if you'd like to listen. FWC speakers Morgan Richardson, Division of Hunting and Game Management, and Mike Orlando, Division of Bear Management, were participants to answer the attendees' questions and address concerns. A recorded video was presented going over a black bear overview. Several proposals were brought to the table, and was some time allotted to the public to express opinions, and a chat box to ask questions and leave comments. So that's just kind of the general overview of the meeting and how they established the, agenda, you could say. Essentially, FWC believes the best way to manage the anticipated bear growing population is to go ahead and complete a hunt almost annually. The hunt would begin the first Saturday and last Sunday in December, with the ability to close the hunting window at any point, just like in 2015, which is at least a good thing. The idea is that the bear population needs to be maintained and controlled, so they would cut back to limit the growing population. Using numbers from the estimated bear population in 2015, they decided a 20% population reduction, about 187 bears, would need to be harvested in the 2025 bear hunt. So, for the record, not as many as 2015. So it's been 10 years since 2015. Our population estimated about 4,000 right now. And so in 2015, they decided there would be about, it'd be about 320 that would be harvested, and then this year only about 187.
Both years, the goal was 20%, correct?
Correct, yeah, no matter what, 20%.
So that would imply that, the population is significantly less than it was in 2015.
Two things. So yeah, either the population is actually significantly less, or two, we actually are having so many fatalities by car collision, natural causes, or interactions with human conflict. So they're being put down, whatever.
Okay, so that 20% accounts for there's more of them dying from these other causes. So instead of doing the 300, we're planning that 130 or whatever are going to die of these things, so we'll only take 187 instead of like the full 300. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a little bit better than thinking that like the whole population has dropped by half in 10 years. And like, because that sounds like we're not doing this well.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, the part of the issue is that, like, it takes 10 years to get the numbers, basically, to get the estimated population. Or that's, not that it takes 10 years, but that's the time frame that they use. But a lot of the concern that was brought up in the meeting was actually just that, well, we don't actually have, like, the numbers in 2015. Is that before or after that we came through and killed 304 bears with 58% of them or so being females? Like, did that greatly affect our population? Also, in 2025, that's been 10 years, that population doesn't seem to really be recovering, based on, from 187 versus over 300 bears.
Right. And now we're also proposing, instead of waiting 10 years, we're going to go every year.
Yeah.
Okay.
From what I understand and from what they talked about, it seems that it would become something that would be every year. It also definitely seems that it's not so much of, are we doing a bear hunt? It's going to be like, we will be doing a bear hunt, at least for 2025. And as well as, basically, if you have a feeling about the hunting regulations and things that are put in place, then you can chat about that. But it does come across, at least to me, and I think a lot of people, that we will definitely be doing that bear. So
I was going to ask that. So those April meetings, was anything voted on or actually decided, or is this just open conversation that they're hearing
open
it?
conversation, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So open conversation that they are listening. To me, honestly, it kind of reminded me that they're just like, they kind of just do it, I think, to entertain the thought and make you feel. And again, this is all just personal speculation from listening to the meeting. It just kind of felt to me that, like, it was you can leave your chat in a box, you can leave your comments, concerns, whatever, about the issue, but it's still going to be decided. It doesn't seem that there's an actual vote. They just want to know what the general public is kind of feeling, not that they're going to take it necessarily into account. And it kind of just feels like it's more like damage control for afterwards, I guess, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I have to admit, I haven't really been to any like public works meetings or anything, or like government meetings. So that might be just the way that it's done, is that like, everyone is heard and it feels a little bit like, well, I'm just being heard, but that the people that have already been elected are going to choose whatever they see fit. But I also think it's important that we still go to these things and that people talk about them, because otherwise, like, they might not know your opinion, and if there's not hundreds of people there, then like there's no peer pressure. Not that we bully our elected officials, but like we kind of do. We kind of have
Yeah,
to.
kind of have to.
Like not
It's not like we're really established in the system to, like, I don't think there's a vote. I haven't heard of a vote. I feel like at this point I'd be hearing about a vote. I've been going through FWC's website for so much over the last couple of days to do all this research and stuff, and I haven't seen anything where there's an actual specific vote where we do have a say in opinions and everything.
Yeah, it
It's
should
like,
be one of those things where it's like, well, we voted in those commissioners, so then their job is to be our representative, and they're the ones that vote on it.
yeah, which I think is really the issue here. But basically, how we talked in the last episode for 2015, there are 4 bigger management units, BMUs, that you'd be able to hunt in. So, the proposal for 2025 for Central Florida would be about 18 bears. The East Panhandle would be about 68 bears. South Florida is about 55 bears. That is a reduced number because, again, Big Cypress National Preserve is not participating. And North Florida would be about 46 bears. And so that in total would give us about the 187 bears that ideally would be harvested in that 2025 bear hunt. So just for reference, and just that, like, if anyone's kind of wondering, FWC has a video linked for YouTube on this process, but I'm going to break it down just a little bit. But basically, the process of FWC and how they count bears to get an estimated population consists of them going through areas that they see bear activity, like paw prints, bear tracks, tree markings, and scat. FWC researchers and biologists aren't able to provide an exact count because bears are secretive. They aren't the easiest to track, and once found, it can be hard to individually identify based on appearance. So we can get an estimate, and to do that, they use CMR method, capture, mark, and recapture. So essentially what they're going to do is they're going to take barbed wire or a hair snare, and they're going to establish it around 4 trees. So a bit like a square corral basically. And then in the center of it, they're going to go ahead and then bait it with like corn, donuts. Just bait it with something that will attract the bears. And basically there's going to be, you've got your 4 trees with your barbed wire. You've got 2 levels of barbed wire. So you got your top and your bottom. And basically, if the bears try to go over the top, in the middle, or underneath, ideally the hair is going to snag on the barbed wire or the hair snare. And so bears are going to come through in and out, get their hair snagged on it, and then the researchers are going to come back through, they're going to go ahead, pull all that hair, and so they'll start doing DNA analysis on it to mark what bears have been identified in that section of Florida. So the capture part is when the hair is stuck on the wire, and then they are marking the bears by doing that DNA analysis, and so they're able to roughly identify what bears are coming through. And then basically they will go ahead and go back the next year, and we'll be able to add, they'll set up the same area or like the same markers basically, and they'll be able to go ahead and add any unmarked bears to the added marked bears from their year prior. That's why it's basically an estimate, and it's not exact. We can't guarantee that every bear is going through that, but that's how they're roughly getting that estimated number to figure out who's traveling through. And so they'll go and set up several in different areas, and in Orlando, in the Panhandle, South Florida, things like that. So seems like a lot of work for a lot of estimating, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gotta be pretty tricky to when you said capture, I thought we were actually capturing the bears themselves, and I was like, man, that would be quite the feat. But yeah, it's really interesting that they can do it that way.
It seems like it's harder to do that for, I don't know if it's harder, maybe there's just less of a need for it, because, the difference between the Florida panther and the Florida black bear is the Florida black bear is not endangered anymore, and so really, it's not a concern to be going out there and collaring every single one of them, like how they are for the panthers. So I assume that's kind of the difference, or maybe it's just that much harder to go out there and try to be tracking and identifying individual black bears.
That's a good point.
Sure.
They're not on the endangered list, so I'm sure it costs a lot more money to put a tracking collar and take all these measurements and stuff. So this is probably a lower budget option to still keep up with everything. Interesting.
Yeah,
it's cool.
Yeah. And like I said, they have a short little 5-minute video on it. That I will have linked as well. So after they take these numbers, they've got the marked, and they add the unmarked to the marked, and so they just keep increasing that marked numbers. In theory, they will then use a formula to calculate the estimated bear population. And so basically, FWC repeats the estimated abundance for each bear population every 10 years. So they will repeat that every 10 years or so in the different areas, and that's how they have an idea of what the bear population is. So, back to the meeting. In the April 2nd meeting, there were about 200 attendees in the virtual meeting. Some members of the Florida Cattlemen Association, Florida Chapter Daughters of American Conservation, Florida Chapter of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, Save the Bear, and Bear Warriors United. These are just some of the participating organizations in that virtual meeting. And I say some just because I didn't get to listen to the video soon enough to get to read all the comments, so I couldn't see everyone else participating, introducing. A lot of people weren't part of an organization, they were just part of the public and just participating to share their own opinion and comment and such. But those are just some of the organizations that were there and, said that's who they were, supporting basically. And like I said a little bit before, from what I understand, it definitely seems that we will be having a 2025 bear hunt, at least in 2025, if not annually. So basically, a regulated bear hunt would provide excess resource and manage the population. So we would see population management, balancing species population growth with suitable habitat, helps to maintain a healthy population. Hunting is an essential tool. Managing bear population does not manage conflict. To prevent conflict, management will need to continue regardless of doing the hunt. They did really stress and make a point that FWC would never do a bear hunt because of bear conflict with human interaction, is what their comment was. I don't know if I believe it, just because it kind of seems that clearly the issue actually is bear conflict and the amount of bears that we are seeing and just the population growth, but I don't think we'd have a population growth issue if we would stop buying, or if we would start buying land in areas that we could actually maintain as just Florida wildlife area instead of continued building things like that.
I guess that they stress that because they don't want people feeling like, oh, well, there's conflict, so therefore they're killing them because of like that we've decided is not good management practices. And then they also said that like hunting, like population reduction does not reduce conflict, which does make sense to me because like you can still have conflict in highly congested areas and still have way less black bears, if they don't have their own space. So yeah, I guess that's to your, I'm just walking through exactly what you just said, because like you said, if they have space where they can be away from people, then you're not going to have conflict and their population can be stable without like that concern.
Yeah, and I guess also I say that because FWC also in that meeting said that currently in each bear management unit, there is adequate habitat for the current level of population. In the future, the habitat will be limited at current growth rates. So when you make that statement too, also it definitely seems that, okay, the issue here is that 4,000 bears isn't necessarily the problem. It's the fact that we are eliminating their habitat and resources for them to just be the Florida black bear, essentially, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that statement kind of sounds like, okay, well, we need to cull the population now, so that way, because things are going to be going in here, we're being preventative, and that there's just enough for them right now. And yeah, it sounds to me like we're avoiding the bigger issue, which is like, well, where are they going to go? And like, we're encroaching in that population so much.
Yeah, it's like it's basically like it's attempting to control and manipulate it, is really what it comes across as. But realistically, almost all, not all, but a decent portion of Florida wildlife needs more habitat. So really, if we would just start having land that is designated, that can't be built on, can't be destroyed and, whatever, we would probably solve a decent amount of our issues, but we're not going to do that because I think it's easier to just control and manipulate the populations of wildlife if it's possible, as well as there's more money to be had if we continue building.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it comes down to the money. Most things do.
Exactly. That was basically, that would be why we would be doing a bear hunt. That would be the goal. That would be what the plan was. Now, in that meeting as well, they were hunting black bear hunting proposal options as well. So, they discussed the harvest quotas, bear hunting zones, harvest season and timing, permit issues, tagging and reporting, guest hunting, allowed methods of take. I'm not going to go through all of those just because honestly, I've never been black bear hunting. I don't think I ever plan to. Definitely not in the near future. So I don't have enough knowledge on a lot of those things like tagging, reporting, things like that. So, we already know that they're planning to harvest about 20. A difference between 2015 and 2025 is that, so 2015 they sold over 3,000 permits. The idea, what they would like to do this year is that they would only sell how many permits for how many black bears they actually have. So from what I understood that, they would have 178, they have 178 bears that would need to reduce the population, and that's how many permits that they would sell. But they don't know if that's going to actually be the option yet. That's just what they're looking for. But their response to that basically was just that we could also stop it just like how they did in 15. They could stop the bear hunt early.
Gotcha. Well, because like 2015, I'm trying to remember, I know we just recorded this, but they sold like 3,000 permits, only intended to kill like 300 bears, and then had to stop it, but weren't more than the allotted number of bears killed? Or I guess in certain regions, a lot more were killed than others.
In certain regions, a lot more were killed than others. Overall, 304 were killed and only 320 were anticipated. However, that 304 does not include the cause to the population, like for the females, cubs that were killed, because anything like that, that's not all accounted for.
Gotcha. Okay.
Cool. So basically, we're still sticking with the 20%. We're still only gonna hunt and bear hunt the bear management units that have at least a population or an estimated population of at least 200. So that's why we only have the 4 out of the 7. And then this year, like I said, they are proposing that the hunt be from the first Saturday in December to the last Sunday in December. And that ideally would be is because typically almost all female black bears are going to hibernate. They should either be hibernating in, with their basically pregnant, or they're going to be taking their cubs in for the second year. And regardless, all female black bears should be hibernating already or about to be. And so hopefully they're trying to reduce the amount of female black bears that would be taken during this process, which I think is good. I think it's better. So in the last episode, 46% of male black bears don't make it out of their territory because of car collisions, other male bears. And so it's kind of like, in theory, yeah, I think that's a lot better. But that also may not do anything at all, honestly, because we're already almost losing half of the male population each year. So we'll see how that works.
Yeah.
So it's either ideally we're gonna kill less of the female that may be pregnant or have cubs, and then maybe it's gonna be mostly just older black bears that would be out and about for hunting, basically. That's the deal. And again, we're only gonna do it in December, and it's gonna be from that point. And again, it can be stopped at any time is the idea. So updates to harvest season and timing. They're hoping for a lot of improvement. They're only going to sell so many permits and things. Ideally, I don't know, because Kaylee and I've already talked about a little bit, it's really about the money. So if they don't sit there and sell as many as possible, there's going to be way less money that comes in from this hunt.
And the money from the hunt is supposed to go to like the garbage cans and the things that actually prevent human interaction, right?
Yeah. It should. We would have to get a public record to find out where that money actually went from the 2015 bear hunt to know for sure. I do believe it did say that some of it did go to trash cans, but FWC did say that they are not the ones that decide where the money goes. They go to the state legislature and they decide, they give them a budget, and that's where that money goes. So it may not all be going just to the Florida black bears either. Some of the questions and concerns that were brought up, I'm not going to go through all of them because some of them were kind of ridiculous. Some of them I was like, that's not the point. So kind of what we were just talking about, there was questions regarding where all the money was going. Where is this money going? How much is it seeing? With all of that money, because for 2015 that would have been, it was about $375,000. I think a little bit more actually. So it was where is that money going? Also, can we start buying land so that we can actually start protecting not just the Florida black bear, but a lot of our other species, like the Florida panther that all needs it, the gopher tortoise. I think we can both sit here all day and list several that really need habitat growth. And so it was well, can we start buying that? And the response back was just that we would have to go to the state legislature. It's up to them if they can start doing that. Really isn't up to us, basically. Or kind of up to the FWC is how it said, but I don't know how accurate that was. That's just what they were told. There were questions and concerns about, why are we using the 2015 numbers before the hunt or after the 2015 hunt? The answer, honestly, was extremely unclear. If anyone listens and, felt like they got a better answer, please, leave it in a comment. But the answer to me was extremely unclear. I did not get a defined answer. I would assume, based on the research and how it works, I assume that these numbers are before the hunt. I would assume, because if they're using 2015 numbers, that would make the most sense, but maybe they weren't. So there were lots of concerns about the hunting regulations. Are we just going to open this up like a deer season? How much will be spent on regulating the hunt? Why was Big Cypress closed? Which basically Morgan Richardson answered that was just that right now Big Cypress is not participating in the bear hunt. They hope to have their participation in the future, but it's not right now. Someone asked about a method to control the population is that are there any drugs that can reduce the population? Mike Orlando responded with a birth control for bears has not been successful, only been successful in deer and herd animals. And why it was successful for herd animals is just because they can go through, they can drive out to the herd, or they can track the herd, go out and administer it, but bears do not travel. They're not herd animals at all. They are, like you said, secretive. They like to stay by themselves. They hide, very hard to track and get a hold of. Maybe in the future, New Jersey has it was a huge report on birth control and wildlife and things like that, and so maybe it's something that I unpack in the future. Definitely wasn't something for this episode, but I had no idea that was something that they were even looking at. It was even an option. Honestly, it never crossed my mind. I am a little curious how bad the side effects are. But I don't know. I know nothing about it. I was just shocked when someone asked that question. I was like, that's cool. I would definitely want to learn more about that.
I'd be curious about the food chain effect.
There were concerns about, what violations were violated. There were a lot of people, well, I won't say a lot, but there were some people being like, all right, well, we need to have FWC, Fish and Wildlife, law enforcement out there with each individual hunter to ensure that everything's being regulated. And I'm not saying that there shouldn't be more regulations, and I'm not saying that I'm not saying that at all, because there are dirty hunters out there, but there's also law hunters that really, really care. This is something they're very passionate about, and they care about doing it right and by the book and making it as humane as possible. And of course, there's just some that don't care. And that goes for all aspects of activities, I think.
Yeah, that's humanity. You've got people that are going to do it the right way and genuinely care, and then you got people that aren't going to, and then you're still going to have poachers.
Exactly. But for the record, it's not that it's not physically possible, but it's not going to happen that they're going to send out a law enforcement officer with each individual hunt. There's not that much control and management. There really can't be that much management and control behind it.
Genuinely not the budget for that, let alone
there's no budget. Also, do you even have that many available law enforcement that could stop what they have to do on a day-to-day basis and then turn around and go out and do this hunt that's open for basically about a month long?
Well, and it's like, okay, how do you do that? Do you, the logistics of it's crazy, because, okay, I need to schedule my FWC officer with my hunt, and then that FWC officer has to get up at 2 a.m., so that way they're no.
I do too, and in theory, if money wasn't the issue, I don't think we'd be in this predicament. But really, it kind of goes down to, if the money was there, then it would probably happen. It is not that it's, the worst idea. In theory, it's a great idea, but it's just not.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
Exactly. Towards the end, it just started talking about, hunting groups, would dogs be able to participate in this hunt? There were lots of feelings about that. Lots of feelings. They did say that most likely dog hunting would not be included for the 2025, for any listeners that are curious. And so basically that was the meeting overall, just lots of concerns, are we getting accurate population numbers? Are we sure this is the best idea? Who said that a hunt is the best idea? Do people want to do a hunt? Things like that. And there will be one last final meeting on May 21st and May 22nd. Based on the agenda that they have on FWC's website, it seems that the Florida black bear will be talked about in the afternoon on Wednesday, May 21st, but if for any reason they can't get to it, they will move it to Thursday, the 22nd. And so for that day, they get through their standard meeting, they're going to go ahead and talk about the proposed rules, options for the black bear hunt. It seems that at that point we should have definite dates and should know for sure on what will be done. There will be time. Their website says that they should be allowing for public comment for about 2 hours once they discuss everything about it. So there will be time to talk about it specifically, but they will be going over non-native fish and wildlife species, the Springs Protection Zone, the Marine Special activity license and things like that afterwards if given like time permitting. So these will be the last final meetings to discuss the black bear hunt. You can go ahead and you can participate in these meetings in person. I called this morning. This meeting will be in Ocala. But if you would like to go ahead and mail in additional commentary, you would mail that into the Tallahassee address, which again, I'll have this all linked for in the caption. But you can go ahead and attend in person. The meeting will start around 8:30 in the morning, and that will go on, I think, until 5, or maybe a little bit before 5, I assume. If you want to go ahead and speak, you have to submit a comment form, and then you can listen. They will record it, you can listen to it live on their Florida channel. And so if you aren't able to participate, I'm not sure if I'll be able to go in person or if I'll just be watching online. I don't know for sure once I get closer to it. In the future, I plan to make some short videos in details about the FWC meetings and how they work, how to receive email alerts to get updated, how to share comments, just in general, because the FWC website is a lot. I think I have a consistent 50 tabs open all the time when I'm researching within their stuff. So I plan to make some videos and just educational videos so that kind of what to expect. It's a little bit easier to know. Also, I don't want to attend a meeting that I don't know anything about. So
Fair enough.
I don't see enough people talking about how to actually get in these meetings because
Yeah.
But you can call. I'll put up a number here. You can call and ask questions. I spoke with someone this morning. She was great. Answered all my questions, a little extra information. And so that is what we're looking at for 2025 for Florida black bears. Looks like no matter what, we'll be doing a black bear hunt. And maybe, I don't know, maybe it is needed. Maybe I think it's needed because we're not going to go buy property.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be needed if we were willing. If we were willing to actually have the habitat that's needed and to give them the space that they need and do a little less building our population, I think we'd be just fine. But we won't do that because there's no money in that.
Yeah. I know. I don't know how I feel about it because, generally, I'm like, yeah, hunting is fine, and if their population is and everything. What I think my biggest takeaway is that I need to do more research about our FWC, about our commissioners, about our government, and these meetings and what all's being decided. Because this is just one aspect of it that's got us interested, but there's so much that's decided in these meetings that we don't attend, that we don't think about, that we don't comment on. So I'm definitely very curious about that and kind of learning more about that and getting into it some more, just personally, whether it's black bear hunts or other things that I'm passionate about or, concerned about. Very cool.
Yeah. And then as well, the commissioner meeting that we are talking about. So this is different than the April meetings. Those are just April meetings to answer questions, go over concerns, go over the proposals, things like that. The meeting that is going to be in a couple weeks from now, about 2 weeks or so, that will be the actual one of the 4 commissioner meetings that they do. So they meet 4 times a year to hear staff reports, consider rule proposals, and conduct other just their commissioner business. It's literally what they say on their website. So they just did a meeting in February in Tallahassee. There will be a May meeting in Ocala, a meeting in August, and a meeting in November. All those locations are still to be determined, and then the agendas also are still to be determined. So these will all be meetings in the public. I plan to have just general information I'll call in, ask questions, any questions that we've got to figure out. I called in this morning to clarify my last couple questions and such so that we know what to do for these meetings and so that we can participate in them. So I think Kaylee and I have talked a little bit that we plan to in the future talk about the FWC and break it down and what is it, who are the people behind it, what is the process, things like that.
Yeah, I'm very curious to get to learn more. I've seen a few videos on social media, but I would like to do more research before I talk to any points I don't actually know myself. But yeah. So,
Touché.
Anything else you want to add?
I think that is everything. I definitely know when I was sitting there in the meeting, I was a little shocked. I was like, oh damn, we're really, I don't know. It was very interesting, especially listening to the comments. I really recommend at least listening to one of those meetings. A lot of people brought up really interesting points. Also, there were some people that I was like, no, I get why we're doing it this way. It does make sense that this is why we're doing it. And things like that. So it really brings you a lot of perspective. There were a lot of hunchers that were participating in the meeting that were just like, a lot of people have issues like it's trophy hunting and things like that. And, like, we're not here for that. Like, not all of us are here for that. So don't just go out there and assume that that's what we're doing. Like, we train, like, not train, but like, we're kind of training for this, and like, this is what we do, and things like that.
I think it's so good to, like, in any situation, see all those different perspectives and just kind of see where other people are coming from, good, bad, or indifferent, whether you agree or disagree, just, like, entertain that and be like, okay, if that's the reality, like, I think it's a good way to expand how we know, well, like, what we think we know about things. I was just listening to another podcast, Weird Little Guys, highly recommend it. The host on there, she was talking about how just go to your local meetings, just go to your local government meetings and sit in there. Sometimes, like, people aren't attending, so just being in there and knowing what's on the table is just so important. And also, sometimes, like, your presence can really make a huge difference, because then there is that pressure there. Because otherwise, they're just conducting business in a room by themselves, you know? So,
Yeah.
if you're there, and especially if you have an opinion or you want to learn more and form an opinion, like, that is a place to be. So I know I gotta do my civic duty and take on a little more responsibility with this.
Sam, I know I need to really figure out, can I make it to this meeting? And also try to make it more of a priority to make it to this meeting. I feel like part of the reason, like, I think like, I had no idea about they were planning to do a 2025 bear hunt up until I came across a video that was like, we shouldn't be doing this and we don't need to do this because of this and this and this. And I was like, well, damn, that is crazy. Like, you're right. And I'm not saying that, we still need it, but I definitely saw the video and I was like, all right, cool, started looking it up, and then I was like, okay, wait, there's way more to this. They're like, oh, here, listen to these meetings, and I'm like, wait, these meetings are also about proposals and different things, and like, if you care about it, if you're willing to take the couple hours it takes to read up on it and to, just understand, then you can have an opinion and be giving back to your community in some type, like, you're giving back to your community in some type of way.
We'll attach the audio for you guys. That way you've got all the information in one easy spot too, if you're already listening.
You have listened to our part 1 of the Florida Black Bear, and then hopefully the second part. Please go ahead and leave any comments and concerns. We'd love to hear how you guys feel about the black bear hunt. Should there be one? Do you remember 2015's black bear hunt? I know I was like a freshman in high school, I think. Kaylee, I don't know. Were you in high school still?
I graduated 2015.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah. I've been starting college, yeah.
Just kidding, tiki. But we'd love to hear y'all's opinion. What do you guys think? So definitely go ahead and share that below. Keely, did you want to share anything about next week's episode at all?
Yeah, so next week we're going to be talking about the deadliest hurricane in Florida history, just in time for us to prep for hurricane season.
It is a crazy episode. I'm excited for that one to come out. Really excited.
I'm very proud of it and all the research that went into it, and I think we do a good job of not just making you scared of hurricanes, but actually giving you true resources to, like, prepare and, be safe. So, because that's definitely what we want. We don't want to create an element of fear and anxiety around something that is just part of life living here, but we also want to really cultivate respect. Yeah. All right. Well, if you enjoyed today's episode, let us know in the comments below, or give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen. You can like, follow, subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, we greatly appreciate it. Wherever you're following, feel free to comment and reach out. We'd love to hear what you guys are saying, hear some of your Florida stories. And if you want to reach us more directly, you can email us at floridapodcast@gmail.com. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great week.